That's we're starting. Okay, we are streaming now, and I'll make the post on PWS now. So the post on PWS is out. We are already streaming, and in the very unlikely case that someone is already watching half a minute after posting it, the noise that you hear in the background, that is Fern doing some stuff that I don't know what it is.
Wait, you can hear that?
Of course I can hear that.
Me too.
That's
Wait, what? All right, so I need to check which microphone is being used. Hold on.
We're already streaming, right? So tell me when you're ready so that I can start the intro.
Go ahead.
Okay, then we'll start. Hello, and welcome. Let's make the music. Hello and welcome to what is it? I forgot. InConversation number 14 with a guest. We have indeed a guest, and a guest that we already had on the show, Heiko, Heterotopian, .tumblr.com. He surprised us, and I was hoping that
Hi there.
Join us today. And of course, with us on the show tonight, today, whenever you will be watching that, Fern Fernando, qbn-scholar on tumblr.com, admin of luxlit.net, and of course also luxlit.tumblr.com. And well, my name's Pete. I like pictures, as you might know. And
what sites are you part of?
What sites? I happen to be one of the admins of photosworthseeing.tumblr.com, together with my friend and colleague Heiko, who's also one of the admins, and of course all the other admins, Gerardo, Nikos, Tiernan, and the ladies, Steffi and Katharina and Angie, of course.
They're the only ones with good taste, thank God. Anyway, and what's your personal Tumblr?
My personal Tumblr is TVOOM, that is TVOOM.tumblr.com. And I have, because I just say it because Fern always kicks me, I have to mention it, TVOOM365, also on tumblr.com. And today we will be talking about a couple of really, I think, very fascinating topics. Well, two actually. We will be talking about photographer versus equipment. So, because it's like we read that a lot, right? It's a fascinating thing that I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but one of the most heard questions that one of the questions that I always get is, you probably have a great camera, or what camera do you use? And that's what many photographers say, me included, and I guess it will be the same, or we will find out. It's not the camera and it's not the equipment. It's the person behind the camera. But where does the equipment really kick in, right? Where is the equipment important? And another thing that I love, the Fern suggested the topic, the vision. We are all artists. And I'm an artist, as you can see, because I have a scarf, and that's why I put it on.
Oh, that's really good. I didn't see that coming.
Artists always talk about their vision. What is that? Is that just a fancy term that artists use, or is there really something behind that? And before we start, I would love to ask you guys a question. And I didn't tell you before. I told Heiko about another question that we're going to talk about.
Another one?
guess, and I didn't tell you.
You're going to make Heiko think. Oh, no.
Have you ever, and this one goes out
Not
to
in public.
two of
Never
you.
mind.
Yes, in public. Have you ever looked at a photograph and asked yourself, what the heck was the photographer thinking when they took that photo, when they made that?
In what way?
In whichever way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know about you, but I really do that. Not all the time necessarily, but in a way, yeah, all the time. I mean, that's part of what we do when we're looking at images critically. And I don't mean that to criticize. I mean, just with a critical eye to understand the image or to appreciate the image. I mean, there's the one thing of just doing what the great majority of people do, which is just looking at pictures, and then maybe they stop when they see one that attracts them. And then there's the if you're someone in a special, I mean, I'm not going to say I look at every image critically, but I tend to do that a lot because it's also a part of how I learn. So it's not just about the photos that I choose, for example, for LuxLit, but it's also just in general. The reason I brought up, by the way, the vision thing is because I bought the Visions, David Duchemin's Master Your Craft, which when I posted about it on LuxLit, it got very little reaction. When his video that advertised it, oh, and there was also one comment that was extremely negative. But I like the guy's free videos. He posts a lot of really good free information. I like his style. So I took it because he does the not so much the technical, but the personal thinking, which is what I love. I love the philosophical, if you will, spiritual side of all of this. And that's a lot of what he covers, including in some ways but he and that's a lot of what he says. You know, when you look at a picture, and he actually, his first assignment was take a look at this photographer. Ask yourself, what's their vision? Basically, what the heck? You know what I mean? And try and figure out and try to think about it that way. And as we've talked about before, by doing that for others' work, you also learn to do it for your own.
Nah, but
so,
let me just get in there. The question was, what is the artist thinking? And it's not about, I'm not sure if it's everything always about technique and why is he doing things. So I stopped asking the question, what is an artist doing? When I was studying literature, I stopped asking, what is he thinking? My question is, what is he trying to say? Or what is he trying to show? Yeah. So that's what I see. That's how I sometimes look at pictures.
Yeah.
And that's how I read. What is the artist trying to say, trying to tell me? I might be wrong in my interpretation. I might be right. But that's basically what I always try to do and still try to do when I'm not going for emotions. And in pictures, it's more or less about emotions. When I choose pictures to reblog, I mostly go for what really catches me, what turns on some emotions. It might be some, what's the word? Yes. Something that reminds me of something else. That's when I remember a picture I reblogged lately that reminded me of a novel, and that's what I stayed, and that's what really catches me. But I'm digressing. It's about what is the artist trying to say for me.
It's really fascinating that you mentioned that, and the difference to say what was he thinking, or what were they thinking, opposed to what were they or are they trying to say? Because that's I mentioned that in one of the past conversations, and certainly one of the biggest impacts that I ever had not I had, but that made the biggest impact on me was also during my drama studies, when one of my professors said, "Don't you ever ask what the or write in one of your papers what the artist wanted to say is, because you don't know what they wanted to say." What I want to know, what I want to read in your papers is what does that, or what did that to you while you were reading that. And I think that is a fascinating point of how to start discussing art and talking about art, to say, okay, what is my perception of this, and what was the artist trying to say, and to find the gap, to put it that way. So what did I see, what do I see, and what did they try to say? And sometimes it's so enormously different, and I see that with my own stuff that I do, when people ask me about what was the idea behind that, or what I remember one time when someone got really annoyed by something that I wrote. And then, why are you annoyed? And then we talked about the completely different perception, and then the tension that can be created by that can trigger something completely new, which is very, very fascinating.
Yeah, no, but by the way, so I totally agree. To me, actually, I do agree, and it's funny because you asked it again. Here's a perfect example. You asked what were they thinking, and I was thinking exactly what Heiko said. What are they trying to say? Blah blah blah. What's the broader? Because I don't know if y'all do this, and actually, I'm glad you asked, and I'm glad we went down this rabbit hole, because one of the things that I'll do when it's a new photographer, or when I see one photograph that I really like, is then go to their Tumblr to see the body of work. And again, I don't know if that's just me. Not only because I wonder, well, is this person, and maybe I shouldn't judge it, and I usually don't, but sometimes I'll see just one good picture, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to reblog this, but do you understand what I'm saying? It gives me some insight into that image, because I'm looking at the broader and what I'm getting out of it. So yeah, it's not a what were they thinking, like what were they thinking, because I don't care. I mean, and it's funny because Heiko, you're absolutely right. When I used to teach, all of this stuff about interpretation and reading media and blah blah blah, that's exactly what I would say. I don't want you to tell me what did they think, because even if they tell you what did they think, what they thought, you know what I mean, you still have your own interpretation. Exactly. So, so yeah, sorry, but anyway, that's I totally agree. Yeah, bottom line. Sorry.
But here we are already at the vision, right? It's a great way to start to that. So let's start. Yeah. So what is that? What is the vision? What's your thing, Fern? Or no, let me start differently. I asked you, Fern, about that, to think about that for the last conversation. Then we didn't get to the point, and before we started, I asked Heiko that. What is your let's start with Heiko, because he had a bit time to prepare. What is your interpretation? How would you define art, the term art?
Yeah, Pete gave me 30 minutes to think about, and first thing I did, I was looking at the definition of art, which I already forgot, but it was about art is yeah, is the body of an artist from an epoch, or it's something somebody does in art, in literature, music. But what really bugged me was that they say he needs a certain skill to do it. So I'm not sure if you need a skill to do an art, but it was more about me, how I define art. So I was thinking about what is art to me. Well, answer, I don't know. Simply, I think you could read books about it, write dissertations about it, whatever. I have no idea. Is art something? It's not. It's not for me something you put in a museum. Art can be shown like we do on Tumblr. It can be done on you do on the streets like murals or whatever. That's art for me. Murals are art. They're great art in my opinion. So I'm not sure. I don't have an answer for this. I really don't. So sorry to disappoint, but half an hour wasn't enough for me. Art is something that touches my heart. So a body of work that touches my heart. Let me put it that way. I think that's the best I can do.
Right. Fern, are you?
Sorry, I just got a call from my sister. Hold on.
We can. By the way, so let me use that. Let me use that time and say hi to all the people on the chat, which are Steffi, Amy, Marie, and Angie, and of course, the three of us are also on the chat. And I also put two things on the chat. Fern obviously had enough time to write on the chat as well. Said, Pete needs more beer. I'm not drinking beer. I thought we are two Germans on this video, Heiko and myself. I thought to drink something typically German, which is not beer. How can we explain to all the not Germans out what
this is beer?
is? It's basically apple juice with water, with soda water. So that's what I'm drinking.
Oh, like cider?
Like, no, it's just simple apple juice with water.
Oh,
without alcohol.
No alcohol. But I have a beer here, and maybe, and it's even a Bavarian beer. Maybe if we can party later, right? Because we can party. I will be drinking beer. I don't know yet. So Fern is still busy.
Yeah, because I told you I have the couch being delivered, and there's a couple of other things, and yeah. Last Saturday I had nothing except this and going to see Black Panther. I can't even go see Black Panther because I have all this other stuff that came up all this week. So
you didn't see Black Panther? You should see.
No, not yet. No, I want to, but I was going to go see it today.
Yeah,
but I can't. Not today.
Okay.
So yeah,
go another time.
Yes. Absolutely. Oh yeah. No, I'll definitely go see it. So anyway, to answer the question, well, and the reason I laugh is because to me, there's art in lowercase letters. There's art with a capital A, and then there's art with capital A-R-T, all uppercase. To me, art is pretty much what Heiko said. You know, it's what's produced creatively. For example, this thing right here. I mean, it's just a handmade Japanese, I think, inspired cup. Yet I love this woman's work. All of my plates, all of my flatware, my cups, they're all made by her. And I will not, as long as she's alive and as long as she's making stuff, even if I break one, which I have to replace a couple, I will buy these. To me, drinking out of this is I am holding this incredible piece of unique art that I have not found anyone who makes anything like this. And they're relatively cheap. They're about $12, $15. These were about $12, $15 when I bought them, 15 years ago. And look, I mean, it's gorgeous, and it's something that like Heiko said, also it touches me when I'm using this. It's a religious experience. It's a spiritual experience. Or when I'm eating out of the bowl or something, every once in a while I'll look at it and I go, damn, this is just so cool. So there's that. To me, I have issues because this kind of thing is called a craft, and they're called crafts people, and they're called, what's the other term? They're not considered artists. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, these are artists, especially when they create stuff like this that's individual. But even if they don't, even if they create a mold, you know, bottom line is it's an expression of their joy of creating. Even if I don't understand it, getting back to the same question. And it's something that's very personal. It's just a personal expression of a talent that you have. Then there's art, which is with a capital letter, which is when, to me, you start going professional. And then again, it could be anything from taking wedding pictures to or, you know, creating stuff to sell or whatever. That's still art, because it's still an expression. Of course, it can also become a business, and you lose that creative vision, and you lose the joy of that creation. But it can still be considered art. And then there's capital A, capital R, capital T. And to me, that's when let's say you're just capital ART, and you become, you know, famous, and you become part of the celebrity machine, and you become who's the guy? Peter Lick. You become a Peter Lick, you know, where you're a celebrity and blah blah blah. And I don't know, for example, if Peter Lick, the picture with the moon and all the controversy, if he's happy doing what he's doing. I don't, you know, whatever. I think it's a cool photograph, but you're a part of the bigger machine, and that's where the celebrity thing can get really dangerous, because all of a sudden you may well start doing it for the celebrity as opposed to your creation. But if you're still happy doing what you're doing, whether it's any kind of creation, God bless you. I may not, but that's to me, that's art. Does that make sense?
Totally, for me. Amy just wrote on the chat. Oh, and big hello to Lindenardenshighlights also on the chat. Amy Montico wrote, I agree with Heiko, something that moves me, something that grabs me and makes me look at it, anything that makes me feel something, is what she calls art. So taking what you said, Fern, am I right in the assumption, go back to, or if we take on the subject of vision, that the vision is something that is bigger than the product? Let's call it product, something that's beyond the product, something that's beyond the actual thing, whatever it is that you create. Or is it so the pieces of art that you create are just big quotes, let's put it like that, the manifestation of the vision. So they are just pillars, the bricks. Is that what you meant?
Well, I think they're both. Because and again, because I'm doing Dushman's course, this is what I've been reading about. So I mean, I didn't think I would have a pop quiz, but I mean that it's when we pick up a camera, when we pick up a pen to write, when we write music, when we cook a wonderful meal, because that can be an art, or when we're gardening or whatever, and that's our art. The bottom line is we bring ourselves into that. So you can't separate the person from the pillars, which is why I like to every once in a while, and which is what Dushman recommended, take a look at this artist and take a look at other artists, and in their body of work, what do you see? Because I would say it would be really difficult. I'm not going to say you can't, but I would think it would be really difficult to say Leonardo da Vinci's body of work and his vision just by looking at the Mona Lisa, for example, because there's so much more to his body of work. And there might be more than one. And that's the other thing. there might be more than one vision that you have. There might be, you know, all of this is not, this is my vision. You know what I mean? You know, 10 minutes from now, I could read something or see an image or something that can influence me in a way that will alter my image. So nothing. And again, this is exactly out of Duchemin's work, and it's stuff we know, or at least stuff that I know, and I think most of us know. Although it's difficult to accept, this stuff is fluid. This stuff changes. This is and trying to pin it down is part of the destructiveness of it for me, I think, because that's when it becomes this, and it becomes a disconnect from who you are as a person and from your life and everything else. It might work for some people, but in the long run, we all change. You know, we never know. So learning to accept that dance, which is the way I think of it, of the fluidity of the change of life. God, I'm getting emotional and deep as shit. Because it by the way, the reason I'm fascinated by all this, because I'm also exploring Buddhist thinking more and more, specifically through Pema Chodron. So, and that's exactly what I listen to so very often. Louise Hay, Wayne Dyer, all of these people. And really, when you look at almost every form of spirituality is about change and growth. So yes. So anyway, that's the package to me. Sorry.
We have some very, very cool things on the chat. Marie writes, when I look at prehistoric art, I'd say it first was a way to connect with magic, with what could be understood, also a way to control that magic question mark. Then when I just focus on music, it's definitely a way to express oneself. So altogether agreed, because it goes direct to our emotions. And then we have a comment by Lindenardenshighlights.
Yes.
But isn't it possible that the definition can become so broad that includes almost everything, and then the definition isn't very useful or enlightening? Which I find fascinating, because
Yes.
because art is a thing that is really hard to define, and as soon as we start trying to define it, we'll have to go, like he writes, right? It's so broad that it almost it includes everything, and then it isn't worth anything anymore, and it isn't useful anymore.
Well, but I think I think the fact that it is broad, it can be broad, but you can also have, you know, it's creative, but then you can also, that doesn't stop you from defining certain things in certain ways as well. There can be the umbrella idea of it being very broad, but that also doesn't mean that you can't categorize it and you can't put it in boxes. The thing that I personally I'm learning more and more is to understand why those boxes are there, and to explore, for example, and again, we've talked about this many times on our conversations, that for example, you know, I'm a photographer, and I photograph buildings and flowers and people. So I will only study photographers who do buildings and flowers and people. But I am also a lover of cinema. I'm influenced by cinema images. I also love music, and learning to appreciate those other art forms, whether it's music, again, cooking, the dance, mime. Talk about being quiet. It will expand how we see everything. It will also usually either expand how we see things, or at least reinvigorate what we already feel and know is our vision. So because again, we go through life being exposed to a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of times we don't notice what's new or different because we're looking at life because it's supposed to be a certain way. But we're always learning and picking up stuff, even when we don't notice it. So So yeah, I don't think that whether it's broad or it's narrow, whatever you're comfortable with, that's fine. And again, I mean, that's fine. That's there. But that's what's also the difficulty of that you know, how do you pin it down? You pin it down the way you're comfortable. And if we don't agree, we can talk about it.
We have another comment by Lindenardenshighlights. Yes, somehow it's the limits to what is art that provides something useful to discuss, and that's the fringe, right? That's really something when communication starts. And if I may, of course, it was kind of mean by me to just throw you into that, and because I had time to prepare for that, and I have. Of course, I have my own definition. I don't say this is the definition. This is my personal definition, and that I would love to just, let's say, throw out of the window and see how it lands. Pardon?
Spill it out.
Let it out, right? For me personally, I say art is based on 4 pillars, right? It's a communication of my own interpretation, of my own perception of the world in a skillful way. So there are 4 things to that. It's communication, because if we can't communicate it, if we don't communicate it, art is always communication, at least as I see it. If I don't, this is the same thing. If a tree falls down in the forest, nobody's there to listen. Does it make a sound, right? Big question. For me, if I can't communicate it, if I don't communicate it, there's no art, because art for me is communication of my own interpretation, because as an artist, I interpret the world that I see. I have a very special, very unique perception of the world, and to interpret and communicate that. And well, there has to be some sort of skill involved, I think, because it only works. I only can communicate it if I have a certain skill, whatever that is. So that's my personal interpretation.
So here's a question for you. What if you are comfortable being the tree in the forest when nobody is around, and you create stuff? Because there's a lot of photographers on Tumblr, which I find fascinating, who just produce their work, and if they get high notes, they're happy. Apparently, they're happy. I would say they're happy. If they don't, they're happy too, and they have their own style and their own way of doing stuff. And sometimes it communicates, and sometimes it doesn't. Because I agree with you. But even if it doesn't communicate, and you're creating this stuff, and it makes you happy, is that still art?
The thing is, and we have also very, very good question concerning that by Lindenardenshighlights. He wrote, Pete, great guidelines, but how is this different from good journalism? And there's a thing. It's a really good question. While my take on that would be, journalism is or should be, at least to a big extent, documenting something, while art doesn't have to document anything in a way that is ideally. Good journalism should be impartial to an extent, or at least say, this is my personal opinion, that while art is not necessarily communicating an opinion, at least that's how I see it.
Sorry, but I have to interfere there. I think art can be, in a lot of ways, being a strong point of giving opinion. And
can be, but doesn't necessarily have to be.
Yeah, it doesn't have to. But journalism shouldn't give an opinion, and art, a lot of people give their opinion through art.
Why? What? As I see it, journalism is always an opinion.
Yeah, unfortunately. But journalism is also about giving, you are not wrong there. it's my definition of good journalism, who gives at least 3 sides of things. But art is more or less can give just one side of a coin, you know. And I don't want to go into politics right now, but art. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So art is. It doesn't have to be opinion, but for a lot of people, art is the only way of giving an opinion. So
go ahead.
Nah, give me something more.
Well, because here's the thing, and this goes back to you repeated the word opinion. From my point of view, there is no such thing as objectivity. Now, I like and this is something I learned along the way with my studies, because in the end, we all have not even a point of view, a standpoint. And even in physics, the whole concept, can't remember the name of the theory, but when there's the theory that when you are observing something, you are affecting it by observing it. And there's the other theory that's sort of related to that, at least in my mind, that where you stand and look at something affects what you are seeing. So you can never really get the full objective picture, if you will, which is why, in the Super Collider, as a matter of fact, they had cameras 360 degrees in a full circle, so they could get all of the data, or as much as possible, because I don't think it is possible to get all of the data. So when we say opinion, to me, it's more of, in journalism, it should be a standpoint. This is where I'm standing, and this is what I'm seeing. And I can't remember the name of the feminist scholar who brilliantly wrote an essay about that, and I can't remember her name right now, and it was so influential, I still to this day use that. So in journalism, you have a standpoint, and I agree with what Heiko said. If you are self-aware enough and want to give as inclusive a view as possible, you give at least 2 or 3 standpoints from different sides. Or you say, this is who I am, this is what I believe, and just so you know, this is what I saw. So you are being honest. But usually that reflexive part isn't included in journalism. In art, who cares? It's that whole thing of, getting back to the argument with Peter Lick and whether he manipulated that picture and whether that moon and the stars, and we'll share the link, or we did share the link already, but I think we can share it again, to the half-hour conversation about this photograph that was photoshopped, and all these photographers are upset, and it's like, why? Because the guy makes millions, or what? Or apparently, I mean, he's a celebrity photographer, so what? So it brings back that whole idea of, the photograph is always supposed to be a true representation. I'm sorry, you chose to stand, blah, blah, blah. The same thing we always keep saying. But so I think it's always good to get back to that, especially with photography.
Right. It's a perfect way to get back to the topic of photography. But can I say one more thing about that? I think in journalism, it is to an extent important, at least in good journalism, to make your standpoint clear. And I love how you put that, with a standpoint, not opinion. That's exactly it. I have to say, this is my standpoint. Or I do it automatically. While in art, I can just put something out, right, and say, do whatever you want with that. And it's I won't. That's a legit thing in art. Quite obviously, there's no need to explain, apparently. While, funnily enough, and that is my experience with over the last like 20 years or something, while working with different artists in different fields, that there are a couple of people out there, and all of them who say, do whatever you want with what I do, and I won't explain. And this is my art, and this is my expression. Do whatever you want with that. But those are, at least really my experience. Those are the ones who got most offended if people say, "I don't get it. This is shit," which is basically a bullshit argument to say, "I don't understand it. That's why it's shit." It just shows, well, if you don't understand something, why is the other one the stupid one? Good question, right? So, but I think here, and there's the really gray area, and that's when art starts or can become something like we have photojournalism. What is it? Is it art? Because it should be comparatively. It here we are at standpoints again, right? Documentary photography is it automatically, or can it be art? Can it become art? Is it art? Where do we draw the line, right? I did, when I started with filmmaking, did a lot of documentary stuff, which I eventually stopped doing because I said I cannot do that for the simple reason that what I want to do is to tell a story, and I don't want my stories to be limited by reality. And so you have to, if you want to do documentary and if you want to do journalism, you have to take reality at least into into your work in a way that is, at least you said, which I totally agree with, Fern, there's no objectivity. There can't be objectivity, but that is at least to an extent that you can prove, that you can give facts, which is not complete fiction, or shouldn't be fiction at all. Even though, again, I totally agree, you can't be objective, and therefore there's always fiction. Every newspaper article, every documentary. A good friend of mine, and I hope that I can convince him to be on the show with us one day. I'm not sure if we will agree to that because of English. I'm not sure how comfortable he is talking English. He is a documentary filmmaker, and he made a documentary. His exam film lately, I saw a brilliant movie, which was basically not a documentary, but a fake documentary about his life, about that brilliant film. So where's the area, right? Where's the border? Which is, I think, and to put that, maybe to conclude that, I think, in my opinion, that in art we don't have to care about reality, about an objective reality, while in journalism, this is what everything circles around.
Yes. And so two things. There's a brilliant Italian documentary about the immigration of Northern Africans across the Mediterranean called Fuoco Amare. And it came out almost at the same time, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, as a film about the same subject called Terraferma. And what's brilliant about Fuoco Amare is that it is almost a story. It reads and you watch it, and it's a seamless, continuous story. It's not in a documentary style at all. Yet it is the reality. It's possibly, and I love documentaries, it is possibly one of the most simple and yet well crafted and individual documentaries because of that. And, the other thing I was going to say, what else? I was going to say something else. Fuck it, doesn't matter. Anyway, yes, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If you, no matter what you write, if it's, whether it's really a newspaper article. It's friend of mine is journalist who worked for a lot of big newspapers and magazines in Germany, And that's what fascinated me was because I thought, okay, how can that even be objective? If you have, okay, your article has to include this and that many words. So you have to always shape reality to tell a story. Everything we see on television is a story, no matter how real or not real it is. It's because it has to work in a it has to have a dramaturgy, to put it like that, or else people wouldn't read it. If you can only document something, you mustn't leave anything out, and that's something nobody would read, nobody would watch. So you have to tell a story, and then by doing so, you have to shape the reality and make it to a piece of fiction again. And so that's I wouldn't want to have the responsibility to do that. So this is really my hats off to those people who do it well.
So I'm glad you brought up telling the story again, because that was the other thing I was going to say. So there is, and again, this is from Dushman, but it's also stuff I've learned. Almost everything we communicate is a story. Whether it's 1 + 1 is 2, that's a story. If it's a formula for, you know, the best barbecue sauce ever, actually the recipe. If it's a picture, like your pictures of the forest, but of landscapes. But do we always, as photographers or artists, tell a story? Because let's say you create Joseph Albers, who creates stuff like this. Is this a story? I don't know if you can see this, but you know, he did stuff very similar to this. Or someone who creates, I don't know, Rothko, who had the color on the. Is that a story, or is it that you're letting me tell my own story just with how I feel about it? So that's one of the things. Do we tell stories all the time?
It's like maybe also I just throw it in. Maybe that's the thing. Just as a thought, the journalist tells the story of other people, while the artist tells their own story always.
Damn, you don't look so smart, but wow.
Well, see,
I'm still stuck with journalism and the topic we're talking about, like photography. And you talked about written journalism, and what stuck in my head all this time is photojournalism. And I'm thinking especially about James Nachtwey. You know about him, that war photographer? There was this great documentary, I think from 2003. James Nachtwey, back then he went into almost every war zone there was. I mean, he was in New York 9/11, he went to Israel, and he was always at the front lines. And that's what stuck in my head now. So is he telling a story there? Or is he just trying to do objective journalism? I mean, he is standing on one side. He's taking a picture of bombs throwing at him. His bullets are flying at him, bullets flying the other way. He's just trying to, and I'm using the word trying here, to do journalism, objective journalism. I think that he does. But it always depends on which side he's on. And so this is, in a way, but is this telling a story? Is this art? Or is this journalism? So there's always this question, and I think I'm not sure if we can really answer this question here right now, and I don't think we can. We're all just going at it. But what I was thinking about, I'm really thinking about Nachtwey here only. So he is going in there, and maybe he is giving us some, or more or less what he is giving us is a feeling again. I'm talking about feelings again, of how a situation unfolds, how it could, I mean, often you just see like dust and maybe a building or people with guns running around. But yes, the question for me still is, what is this? Is this journalism? Is this a story? And I don't think this is art. So
can I chime in here one moment, because Lindenardenshighlights wrote another brilliant comment. He wrote, "I think the best documentary filmmakers are also artists, e.g. Werner Herzog's documentaries. There are more and more of them. There are more and more of them these days." So
to your comment, the art question, that depends. Because that's a judgment about the value of it in an artistic sense. And when you look at, let's say, journalism, photos, or video, film, if you're going to get into the art aspect of it, and sometimes, most of the time, that will include the technical and the feeling that it evokes and all that stuff. But isn't it in the bottom line a story? Because you're still showing maybe just a capture of a moment, but the very fact that it invokes a feeling with you, it's going back to what Pete said, it's communicating with you. And when you're communicating, you're telling a story. You know, I mean,
this is me telling a story out of the picture that has been taken, and it's not the picture is telling this. Maybe it's telling the story of an event that has taken place,
right?
But it invokes a feeling within me, so I am communicating the feeling. But the picture itself is more like a part document of what has been going on.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still a story. I mean, if you read one of my favorite novels, Dracula, you know, whether it's art or not, who cares? But it invokes senses of mystery, suspense. I've read it like 5 times. Frankenstein, the same thing. Strangely enough, Carrie. They make us feel. There's a story, and it's the same thing with the photograph. The journalism photograph that I always think about when this discussion comes up is the one of the naked Vietnamese girl that has just been in the Napalm attack, and has, you know, either she was burned or, I mean, that is a story. You see what's happening at that moment. You just see that moment. The Mona Lisa, that's a story. Again, like I said the other day, I think she farted and was just giggling because she thought it was funny, but that's the story of that moment. And it is communicating. The artist may have just thought, oh my God, I'm so tired. I mean, Da Vinci might have just thought, you know, I'm just tired of painting this. Let's just put a smile on her and get her the hell out of here. But the bottom line is that's not how we read it. So which goes back to what you said, Heiko. It's not about what the artist was thinking. So I think it's great we can talk about this stuff, but I think, to me, what's really great about these conversations is that it teaches, at least me, more and more how to, on the one hand, understand the categories, but on the other hand, understand that things can fit in different categories. Sometimes they don't fit in a category. Sometimes we need to invent a new category. And sometimes I just don't care about the categories because it makes me smile. It's a pretty flower. It makes me smile. But again, like what you're saying, that's where you are at the moment. That's perfectly fine, because it's stuff that we all have to negotiate. Did that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Can I?
Does that make sense, Heiko?
Two things. Sorry.
Maybe I'm having another problem of your comparison, but that would go into deep, like comparing the Mona Lisa with the Vietnamese girl. That's, to me, a dangerous comparison. But and I don't see the story.
Can you ask a question? Why is it? How can a comparison be dangerous?
No, danger. It's like maybe that's me and being German, but
no, I told, because I'm also German. I know what you wanted to say. I think I know that you wanted to say.
There's no cure for that, unfortunately.
My question was rather, a comparison can't be dangerous. It can
No,
only
no, no, no. But what's
that
behind
have
the comparison?
the answer that you might give.
Like
A
we have the Mona Lisa, which is regarded as a work of art, and you have the girl that is going to die in a second.
Well, we don't know.
But no, see, the thing is, and I have to chime in here, because we don't know anything. We don't know anything about the context, or everything about the context we know about the Mona Lisa are just assumptions. And we think we know a lot about the Vietnamese girl because, well, war in
Which we
Vietnam,
don't.
etc., etc., etc. We don't know anything. It could be staged. I don't say it is, and I never read anything about that. Just saying. So I think we can easily compare these two pieces of art. Because we always have to take the context and compare the context and what and the questions that arise from that are what makes comparisons like that interesting, and where we really should be talking about where we are at the beginning, and what did the artist want to communicate, what did they want to tell. And there's this big mystery there are so many mysteries about the Mona Lisa. And there's apparently no mystery at all about the Vietnamese girl.
Yes, there is. Well, we don't know about the Vietnamese girl. So let me just clarify that. There was actually, and I think I posted it on Luxlit. I'll look it up. But there was a photographer who was talking about the decisive moment. And he was there when it was happening, and he says to this day, I'm so upset that I wasn't there to capture the picture. But as I think he also says, even if I would have been there to take the picture, would I have gotten the same angle? Yada 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 yada. This guy was at the right place at the right time, turned around, saw what he saw. And he did the automatic thing. He took the picture. So there's a little bit of backstory to that situation, but we don't know about the girl. We don't. The other thing I wanted to add is, yes, that photograph of that Vietnamese girl is journalism, but sometimes those pictures are also considered art. And in that one's case, it is considered art. Rather brutal. It's not something I would hang up on my wall. But it is considered art. As a matter of fact, in Woody Allen's, I think Manhattan, he has that picture blown up in his apartment, and it's part of the wall. It's a mural, which I always found so disturbing in so many ways. So again, that goes back to which is why I understand what you're thinking about all this stuff, because it depends on who you talk to and how you look at things as how you define things. So you can have your definition, that's fine, but it gets murky and it gets difficult when you start having discussions.
Right. The thing is, though, and what I find very interesting, because so far we, quote unquote, only talked about
2 more minutes.
Emotional. 2 more minutes, and then
I gotta go.
Okay. We can go. I can talk with Heiko.
No, that's fine. No, I'm not saying we have to finish. No, please. I'm not that important.
We only talked so far only about the emotional impact, but I think the picture of the Vietnamese girl also shows one thing, that there's also an intellectual approach to art, because, well, if we wouldn't know the background of that all, right? Vietnam War, napalm attacks, etc., this would be a crying naked girl, which can be considered to be art, but the whole context, the knowing of the context, gives a whole new dimension of that. And so there's I had this fascinating discussion lately about, can things become art over time because the context changes? And if something has become art, can it also not become art again? So if it's once stated to be art, if it can you take that that medal art of it again. So this is kind of a could be another discussion, which is kind of very fascinating to me.
Because here's the thing, part of what is defined, what we're talking about, all of this as art, is Western European definitions of art. Because, and it's the same with music, which just burns my ass, makes my ass itch to no end. There's music, and then there's world music. ¿Qué coño es world music? Me cago en tu madre. Okay. I hate that term. It's music. Okay. So again, it gets back to the categorization. I grew up with what a lot of people here in the United States called world music. To me, it's music. Okay. So again, it gets into the whole definition of what's what and what your standpoint is and what you bring to whatever it is that you're communicating with.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Right. And I have another Lindenardenshighlights. We want to have you on the show too. It's amazing stuff on the chat. Fern, that photo also turned out to be political because it impacted public opinion on the war. Very, very important comment. Another way of saying perhaps that one has little control over the life of her work when it becomes public. And in other words, does our concept of art change over time?
Of course.
Brilliant question.
Yeah, of course. Because what we consider art now, I mean, for example, I mean, you go the mummies and all of the quote unquote art, the caskets and all this stuff. It's art. Granted, it's also historical, you know, put in museums for historical reasons. This stuff wasn't created for museums. This stuff wasn't created for, you know what I mean? This was part of a way of seeing the world and seeing the afterlife, and was part of their lives. It was not art. You go to actually Burg-Eltz. I mean, you go to Burg-Eltz, and which is the castle in Germany. Have you ever been there?
Oh, Burg-Eltz. Burg-Eltz.
Ah, that's what he's talking about.
But I heard about Burg-Eltz.
Oh, it's wonderful. So you go to this place, and yes, it's a people where people. It's a place where people live.
Terrible English. Huh? Now I know how you feel with our terrible English.
Oh, no, it doesn't bother. No, it doesn't. It doesn't bother me at all because but you go there and you see the place where the people lived almost 1,000 years. Well, no, like 600-700 years ago. Now you go to the Getty in Los Angeles, for example, and you walk into some of those rooms, and the furniture, the same kind of furniture, the same kind of clothing, the same kind of porcelain, all the stuff that was a part of their lives, not art, is now considered art. Oh, artisan. This is an artisan. Picasso is an artist. No, this is an artist, in my opinion. Picasso is an artist. On that note, I've got no more nonsense to share. I have got to go. Thank you all. Heiko, you're okay. Pete, shut up. Bye.
Bye, Fern.
So do we want to continue talking, Heiko?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Let's try to talk about the photographer versus equipment.
Yeah, that's what actually
talked about the other topic a lot.
Yeah, you can do the other topic another time, and we do the equipment talk. I'm okay with that.
Pardon?
Yeah, I'm okay with doing the equipment talk, and the other one you do next time. Because I have no idea what the other topic is, and I don't think I'm prepared for that at all.
Because of the picture that was connected, but we can do that. Well, what do you think? Which is kind of weird talking with you in English, but okay.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Sprich mal auf Deutsch, das versteht dann auch keiner.
Ach, die armen Leute.
Okay, how do you feel about the thing is every photographer, well, many photographers say, well, the camera doesn't really matter, the equipment doesn't really matter. You can take great photos with every piece of equipment. And I'm certainly one of these people to say, yes, that's absolutely true. It's the photographer that counts and not the equipment. On the other hand, wow, what's your take on that?
First I would say, yes, it's just about the photographer, but no, it's not. It's about quality also. Like, before I got my DSLR, I had a mid-level camera. And if you look at my blog, look 4 or 5 years back, you see a lot of pictures that you might see, oh, there is the eye, or that I am kind of developing an eye for pictures, but the quality of the picture, it's just not there. It's just, and that, in my opinion, lowers the whole package. Lowers the the quality of the picture affects yeah, how I perceive it. At least I do myself. With other people, it might be different, but looking at my own stuff, yeah, 4 or 5 years ago, I'm not happy with it anymore. I tried to edit it in another program, but still, the quality for me isn't there. So I might have had all the eye back then, which I hadn't, but or vision, as you called it earlier, but it's not the same for me. And that's why I still go back to places I went to 4 or 5 years ago today with another camera, also with another lens. I got myself another lens after Christmas, and I still go back there, and pictures might be similar, but yet different. And I'm not sure if they're better, but to me, it just feels different. So better equipment, at least for myself, makes me feel better about my pictures.
Give me a second.
Yeah.
I just saw that we had a comment on Tumblr. I just saw it now, and I'm just copying it into the chat. Give me a second. Nom 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 1123 wrote, Pete nails it in one term by saying it's the artist telling a story. Fernando, I agree with a lot of your views on relatable aspects of everyday studies and teachings, opinion statements, facts, whatever they may be in art, journalism, and so on. And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Which one are you? Great. I just wanted to share that. Yeah, but how do you define quality? You say quality. Do you talk about the picture quality, the technical quality?
Yes, it's about also technical qualities. And you have a better technical qualities. You can see more a picture sometimes, and that's, at least for me, what was missing with the lower quality equipment. And now I'm just, yeah, I mean, some people, you might say that some views weren't clear at all, and others were clearer. If I had more time, I would have looked at some older pictures and shown you the old ones and the new ones. But
a great thing. It just came to my mind. We could compare pictures in one of these shows, like saying, okay, pictures I took like 5 years ago and or 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and now.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would be all in for it.
One day, definitely. Yeah, but I feel the same way. Before I got my DSLR, which was about 10 years ago or something, I had also had my little snapshot camera, and in my teenage years, I shot a lot of analog, which I couldn't afford anymore because I had to buy CDs, right?
Yeah.
And so I couldn't afford photography anymore, and or didn't want to. And so and my little snapshot camera, it totally frustrated me because the picture quality was so terrible. But that was also kind of the beginning of digital photography back then, and so it didn't hold up to what I was used to with analog. And so when I got my first DSLR, it was like I was blown away by the quality of that. And so it was, for me, it was rather a thing that I said, okay, it's much more fun to take photos because you really get photos that I would want to look at, and not these muddy little 2 megapixels, 4 megapixel shots, but really have a big picture on my screen, full screen, that when I see all the detail. But what I found lately, and or more and more, I mean, I started with my DSLR and the kit lens. So okay, then I got my 50mm prime lens, the 182, the nifty 50, which opened doors for me because I suddenly was able to do things with that lens. I mean, this extremely shallow depth of field. So about for 1 year or something, I only took photos with like the shallowest depth of field that I could achieve, simply because of the reason that I was able to do that. And then I got my telephoto lens, 200mm telephoto lens, and I took telephoto. So it's yes, you can take great photos with every piece of gear, because it's also about the quality. I totally agree with that. But you can take, but every piece of gear, every camera, or every camera/gear combination has its limits, and you can do great stuff within that limit, or within these limits. No question about that. And a better photographer than I am, and could do greater stuff with the same camera and the same lens as I can. And that's an experience thing, and a talent thing, and creativity thing, certainly. But different equipment will enable us to do different things. So
yeah, I think that's a good point. Calling it different equipment and not lower or higher technical equipment. It's just different, and different equipment makes you take different pictures. Like where it was just in January. Oh, equipment. It's just. Who are you?
do you have your couch now?
No.
Ah.
So right, different equipment.
Different equipment. Like the example I wanted to tell, when there was the flood in Cologne, like the river was going over, and when I took my 2 lenses, I do have 2 lenses now. I got a tele lens, and with that, I was just had the possibility to take such different kind of pictures, and the quality might be good quality still, but there was this one picture with the bench that was almost fully covered with water, with the river water, and that was just, I wouldn't have been able to take that picture with another equipment, and that was, for me, was just like one of those wow moments. And yeah, that's kind of what makes me happy with my art, when I have this moments like wow. Or like this week, I have the pictures of these gepards from the zoo, which just wouldn't have been possible with another lens. So yeah, but it doesn't say that it makes it a better picture or a worse picture. It's just a different equipment which gives you different opportunities, and I just like these different opportunities these days. Sometimes I really think, yeah, how would they look with my older mid-level camera? The quality wouldn't have been that good. The picture quality, like megapixels, etc., wouldn't be that good, but it just would be a different feeling to it.
Marie on the chat wrote, I'd say if you have a very cheap and or bad camera with very little technical knowledge of how photography works, it's going to be really tough to have your vision come out the way you had it in mind. On the other extreme, you can have a very good camera with no vision, soul, story, magic, and it just won't do. Many possibilities. And James Chrisley joined the chat, right now and wrote, I think that if you went back to using a simpler camera now, you will produce better photos now because you understand its limitations and you can use these creatively. Which is a very good point. Or
let me answer to James Chrisley's comment there. If I would go back and use a camera with limitations, I would just be mad at myself because I couldn't take other pictures. I was like, no, you have other equipment, you can do it better.
Really?
I agree.
Yes.
I agree with James that, and I think that's what he meant. You understand the limitations, and you certainly, it's the same thing. You would make better photos with that camera.
I would be just frustrated.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You can make, and that's what you said, you can make different photos with different equipment. I cannot take the same types of shots with my DSLR as I can take with my little snapshot camera, for the simple reason that I could put my little snapshot camera on the ground, for example, or lift it high above my head, or put it somewhere where I can't put my DSLR. So knowing the limitations and using them creatively, and that's one thing that I read a lot by people who say something I don't understand really, when people say I went back to analog, just as if analog would have disappeared. It never went away. It was always there. It wasn't there to that extent as it is back now. But that's when people say I use my analog equipment now more because I need the limitations to focus more on the act of photography and to focus more on framing, and because I only have these 24 photos or 36 photos and stuff like that. It's definitely not my way of working, but I can understand these people. I don't want to limit myself by that, but that's just me. I don't say this is a bad thing, and I don't say this is totally the way. But I think that's what James meant. You know the limitations, and you use them, or can use them now, more creatively than back then, when you didn't know that what to do with a camera, when you were just like, okay, I just want to have a photo. And now you say, okay, I can do this, but I can do that, and I know that's what the camera can do, and that's what it can do, and so I'll use that.
I didn't say that he was wrong. I was just saying that for me it is frustrating.
Yeah, but I feel you. I would never go, if I could take the same shot with my DSLR, then I would definitely use the DSLR, because the picture will definitely be better from a technical standpoint.
Yeah. Some things go Fern.
Go.
Some things I actually do when I go out with my I'll do it most of the time when I go out with my DSLR. Also take pictures with my cell phone. I mean, cell phones today, they have cameras who are as good sometimes as DSLR, and I think I do have a good phone. So that's what I do, but it's some kind of comparison. And yeah, I do like Instagram also, and I do all kinds of different things on Instagram, like super colorful most of the time and heavily edited. So but that's just fun for me. And sometimes it's also about to compare things. How do they look on my DSLR, and how do they look like a snapshot from my cell phone? But that's the comparison I take.
I never Fern.
No, go ahead. Go.
I wanted to say, I never took a decent, if just one decent photo with my smartphone, because I simply can't do it. I can't take good photos with my cell phone because I'm too stupid. I have my cell phone, my smartphone is a great camera, but I'm just too stupid to use it. I can't use it. I'm so used to my DSLR that I cannot take even one decent photo with my smartphone.
So I agree with you. Now, what's really interesting is what started me really becoming fascinated with photography was, again, for the third time in my life, I started taking pictures of plants and places and things with my BlackBerry Curve, which, like, you know, horrible resolution, but it got me to thinking along the terms of, this is the limitation of this device. This is what I can try to do with it. Let's see how far I can push it. And sometimes you mess up and sometimes you don't. So in 6 years, I have gone from the D50, which is like a first or second generation Nikon mid-tier camera at the time, digital. I loved that camera. It's interesting because I heard Heiko say that he doesn't like his photographs, and correct me if I'm wrong, from earlier on.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I wouldn't say don't like them. Compared to what I can do right now, it's like, oh, what did you do there? But back then, I really liked what I was doing, and I still say.
But how do you feel about them now? How do you feel about them now?
I still look back and see how I saw them back then, and because I know today that I had these limitations, I can still say, okay, they were okay for the time I took them. Nowadays, if I would take them now with all the equipment I have and the tools I have, I would say, oh my God, I would never post them anywhere. I would never show them to anyone. But back in the day, that's okay. And I can still say, yes, back then it was okay.
Can I jump in there? Because I think that is fascinating, because you said you would take them differently with different equipment. The thing is, if I look at photos that I made like 5 years ago when I started, no, 10 years ago, I started 10 years ago. I started again with photography, with digital photography. I wouldn't take the same photos now with the same equipment that I had back then. If I had my camera with my 1855 kit lens with me, and I would have seen the same, or I would see the same scenario, whatever, I would not take the photo because I know it will not turn out the way I wanted. But the learning curve, what I can do with the equipment, with the camera, with these lenses, that was needed to get to a point where I said, no, I won't even take that photo because it will not turn out the way I wanted it. So I take less photos now than I took 10 years ago. But while taking less photos, the amount of photos that I consider to be good enough to show is percentage-wise much higher than back then.
Really? No. I'm not judging your work. I'm just what you just said. So there's a couple. This is really interesting. So there's a couple of things. Let me go back to what Heiko was saying about being upset if he had a different camera or a less effective camera, I guess, and that you would be upset if the shot. If you couldn't take in other words, that you were feeling limited by the camera. It's really funny because granted, I just got the A7R, my new baby, recently, but I still have the Fuji 100S, which is like 3 generations ago, 16 megapixels, just, fixed 35 millimeter. I love that camera, and I go out, especially at school, at work. Well, school and work. Work is school. School is work. At work, I'll walk around and I'll go into the classroom sometimes, or I'll take. And there's certain pictures I know I can take with that camera they're going to be wonderful. And if I miss a shot, because that's the thing, if I miss a shot that if I would have had this, would have been able to take, that's fine.
Right.
Again, and maybe that's because I don't stress about photography anymore. I just enjoy it. If I miss a shot, oh my God, a beautiful sunset. Where's my no camera? No. Oh well,
happens.
enjoy
That's
the
okay.
But that's exactly what I meant. Now I see, if I have, sometimes I have my camera with, I don't always have my, well, I never have my big, or almost never have lenses with me. I have my camera. When I go outside, I decide which lens to put on. And a different lens on a DSLR means having a different camera. So, and I see something and I say, okay, I will not take that photo with that lens. It would maybe, well, I'm pretty sure that the shot was okay, but I know that I will, back home, I said I will never use that shot because I know with the other lens, that shot would have been much better. But that's the thing, I don't stress myself. I don't need that shot because I could have a much better shot. Why take this one? I'm much more selective in the already in the process of deciding what to take a photo of than I was back like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when I just took photos of everything. When I had my camera with me and took photos of like, oh, there, I need to take a photo. So I realized with myself that my approach shifted from I want to take photos to I want to have this shot and I want to have that shot and I want to have this and that. And it's not about, for me now, at the point where I am now, it's not about the act of photography anymore. It's about creating something, having something, or having something created. I'm not even so fond of the act of creating. I just love having created something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just where I am now. Maybe I'll be different in a year, or maybe in 2 weeks, or maybe tomorrow. And that's also something what you mentioned very early in this conversation. It's a constant flow. It's changing and embracing that and joining the dance, as you called it. That's what I really enjoy about photography, is that it's never static. If I do the same thing that I did a year ago, even though I mostly post trees or take photos of trees, I do that with a very different mindset now than I did a year ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. And
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'm done with that.
Okay, so I have a question. So because you know me, well, and I've said this very often. When I was shooting the first 2 times, when I was in my 20s, and then when I was in my 40s, God, I'm old. And I had SLRs shooting film. I had the kit camera, which was a cheap zoom lens. I've always shot with zoom, except for the Fuji, which has been a really interesting experience to learn how to see just 35 millimeter. Fascinating, because I need to learn how to see the way the camera sees. That's the way I think of it. But here's my question to you, Pete. Since I don't really use primes, and I will probably never get another lens for this thing. It's by the way, 24 to 105 millimeter. If you have a lens that you don't think is right for the image or for the place where you are, because it's not what you thought of, why not just take the picture, maybe even take it in a different way, and just go for the adventure of seeing what happens?
But okay, maybe that was the misunderstanding. If I see something, if I have my lens, lately I mostly have my 24 millimeter prime on my camera. So, and I go
which is a 35 millimeter equivalent?
Not 35, sorry, 24 millimeter prime.
But is it on a it's a prime, and it's on an ASPC or whatever. It's on a so is it 35 millimeter equivalent?
No, it's a 24 millimeter lens. It is an EFS lens for an EFS mount, but it's 24 millimeter.
Oh, okay. All right.
Let me. I can't do that. 24, which is an equivalent of 38.
Okay.
38 millimeter.
Okay.
We should talk about focal lengths one day.
No.
And and the crop factors. I'm preparing a video about that. I wanted to do that for quite a while. So I have my 24mm lens on my camera. Sometimes just for the simple reason that it's a pancake lens, and I can fit my camera in my bag. Really cool, and I love that lens for so many reasons. Reason number one is that the angle it gives me is just gorgeous, and it's because it's roughly what I see. So that's perfectly plays in what you said, learning how the camera sees. I don't have to learn. It's just what I see. It's when I look through the viewfinder. It's perfect. And the picture quality is just amazing. And it also
hold on. But yes, I think what you said about it's just how you see, but depending on the camera, which goes back to a lot of what Heiko was saying, depending on the camera, the quality of the camera, because a camera, even a Canon, because you shoot Canon, right?
I shoot Canon, yeah. We both do.
So whatever model of Canon you may have, or it's not going to have the same the intensity of color, the tint, the values of what it captures are going to be different camera from camera, model to model. So you see what I'm saying?
It could be. I had this very lens on my old 550D, the Rebel T2i. I had it on my 700D, T2i was the 550D, on my current camera, the T5i, the 700D, and I had the same lens on 750D, the T6i. I think it's the T6i. I didn't see a difference.
Okay. All right. No, just checking.
No, what I meant is, okay, I have that lens on. I see something, and I said, and I think, okay, this would be a great shot with, say, my 50mm lens, or this would be a great shot with, what are you trying to tell me?
An hour and a half.
Right. This would be a great shot with my 28-135 if I zoomed in completely. But I will not get the same picture with the 24. So I don't take that picture. I don't even attempt to get that picture by trying to get closer to get the same framing or whatever. But what I definitely will try, if I have the time, is to take advantage of the lens that I have on and try to find a different thing. But I'm not the person to go out. Even if I go out for taking photos, I'm not the person to look for sceneries or for photos. And that might sound weird, probably. I let my sceneries find me. In terms of, I have my camera on my camera. I had after our last conversation, I bought a different strap for my camera, which is pretty I have my neck strap again on it.
Did you buy the Peak Design, the one that's
I had a different one. I will show it to you next time. It's pretty handy, and I will put it on my other camera. But so most of the time I just walk around and look around, and then something strikes me, and I know then, and that's when I know, okay, I can take that shot. And if I don't have the right camera or the right lens with me, then I will probably, then my head will start to which is a rare thing, that my brain will start to work, but sometimes it does. And
that's my line.
I'm sorry. And then I will try to get a different. And last week was kind of interesting, because I had my 700D and my 550D with me, both of them. On my 700D, I had my 24, and on the 550D, I had a 50mm prime, a vintage prime lens. And the last photo I posted on my Tumblr is one of these photos, that almost black and white snow picture, was one of these vintage lenses. And it was very fascinating. I was thinking about making a video about that comparison from the same point, with different focal lengths and different lenses, the same scenery. and I'll do something, make a video about that, because it's really fascinating how the whole scenery shifts, and you have a completely different impression of what was there, and that's how you. And it's also something, and I'm always, I don't know if I do that, or if I will do that, because someone asked me lately, so, well, the photos you post, where are they from? And I said, it's just kind of around the corner. Heiko knows. And because he visited me once, and I said, wow, you must be living like so in the forest, which I don't.
Nope.
And it's like really sometimes just shifting the camera, like from the point of view, like a couple of inches, and then you see, okay, there's a road and there's street signs. It's just really taking that one only possible angle to, and people think, wow, this must be an endless forest or whatever. So
maybe I still have some pictures left from that forest. Maybe I should post some next week, so people can say, oh, this is there. No, it's not. Yes, it is. You know, but
like 4 trees, and just taking photos from 5 different angles, and you think it's a forest. No, it's a forest. But
so anyway, I want to go back to what I heard, that whole thing about, like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I just consider them, and I understand that they're different cameras and there's different ways. I love some of my photography from, granted, I mean, and I agree with you. I mean, we learn stuff, we see, and I have to say, this camera now with the lens that I'm using, which I heard was stellar, but damn. I was looking at a photograph the other day, which is, I did post to Tumblr. It'll be coming up tomorrow. That's a color photograph of a building far away, and I was looking at it in camera raw, which is like Lightroom, at a 400% magnification, and I could still clearly see the details on that building. That said, the kind of photographs, it's the same kind of building off kind of thing that I've been doing for several years now. That just looking at the image and looking at something I would have shot with my D50, which was only 6 megapixels, and it was a cheap little kit lens that was made out of plastic, yada yada. I still look at some of those images and I'm absolutely in love with them. So you know what I mean? So I learned, but there's and it's not because of the connection. I look at them and I think there's actually a photograph that TJ looked at, and I think we talked about it when he was in conversation with us, of a strap, and got very few likes. Almost nobody noticed it. But that photograph to this day is one of my favorite photographs I've ever taken. I don't know if I could even get the same kind of photograph with this because of the sharpness of the image. This is just so incredibly sharp. But I love those images. And I will also tell you, I have to say, I keep thinking about maybe getting a D50 again with the same kit lens, because I really like it, but I don't like the idea of having 2 cameras. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
But I think it's fascinating. I have to say that for whatever reason, some people, especially on Tumblr, seem to think that I'm anti-analog photography, which is kind of complete bullshit. Because
really, yeah,
it's like, why would I? I'm like the first one to cheer everyone on to take photos with whatever. Take your photos with whatever. Take your photos with your shoe if you can. Just take fucking photos. Do it, please. So, what I'm just amused by these fights that I see, especially from. And I only see that. I never ever in my entire life saw a digital photographer post, or a photographer who mostly shoots digital, post something like by megapixels, not film, which is just the most stupid, tag. I saw that tags. Like why would what is that? Why and these arguments saying like, yeah, the imperfections of analog photography, the char is what the charm makes of that, and I love and I hate all the details. The digital pictures are much too clear, but analog is so much better because it has a much better latitude and we can capture more details. And like saying, okay, details in sharpness are bad, but details in latitude are great. And that's like, people just take photos with whatever, take the equipment that gives you the photos that you want to see. And if you want to see them, then this is absolutely guaranteed that there are other people who want to see these exact photos as well. And connect with them, connect with those people who want to see your photos. And if there's anyone out there who tells you that's shit, then say, okay, then don't look at it. If you, it's just, why, what makes you a better photographer, or what makes your photos? And that's what I really wanted to say. And we, since we already are like way beyond our time, I want to show you a photo, and I've said that.
Wait,
I want to show you a photo, and I want to have your real opinion, your honest opinion of that shot. So if you say,
okay,
terrible shot, then say it. If you say it's an amazing shot, then also say it. Just be honest. Okay.
And then I'm going to say something. Ooh.
Okay. So take a look at that photo and give me your honest opinion.
It's intriguing.
Yeah.
There's something I have to say. You know me in complementary colors. There's something for me in this photo. And it's funny, as soon as I saw it, I went, damn. There's a slight reddish tint, especially in the dark, just the sky, that plays beautifully. And then the slight reddish, orangish tint of the rocks. That absolutely keeps drawing me in, because it's a wonderful counterpoint to the greens. That there's I don't know if it's my screen is dirty, but I can't really zoom in, but there seems to be some detail. So the blacks, the shadows aren't, yeah, there we go. The shadows aren't blown out. So even from before you zoomed, I could see that. I could see like that line between the trees or whatever, right down the center. I could see hints of that. And so I personally think it is a very good photograph. A little tweaking, perhaps. Yeah, I love it. I love it, and I love it as is. And I see, yeah. I won't even speak about potential. I like it. I love it. Actually, I would have this on my wall. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Or I would reblog this on LuxLib. Close to thinking maybe perhaps make it a picture of the day, because it's interesting within itself, and it also speaks to the potential of the picture itself, but also what's there. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, sorry. Heiko?
I love how the different lights, like the lower third is really, it's lighted, and then you have the pure darkness, and then you see the evening. It's like it's a moonlight, maybe, whatever, but there is still some light you can see, and it's like this into darkness thing, and that's what I actually love about it. And yeah, it's absolutely intriguing, and yeah, to me it tells a story. Going back again, so yeah, great potential. Yeah, as you call it, potential. I don't know if you can say if it's done, if it has potential, but there is something to it. There's absolutely something to it. I love it. Yes.
Okay.
And here's and hold on here. There's something else, because the more I look at it, the more I see. There's a balance between, there's a lot more green on the left, but that's sort of on the low. That's a bit lower. Then there's more green on the other side, right, matching that. But then on the right, but then if you look up, there's a little bit of green higher up, and then there's like some, may not be green, but there's a space on the right. I want to say about 1/3 up, where you see on the right more of the sky background. Yeah, exactly. Around there. Yeah. But lower and to the right.
More to the right. Yeah, and
more
now
to the
to
right.
the right. To the right.
Yeah, now to the right. To the right. There. Yeah. Well, yeah. Keep going.
Go further, further. There exactly
we go.
There.
So you see that, and even though it's more of a red, it balances out the patterning of it. It draws me in. It absolutely draws me in. And then there's the line of sight, the two lines that are pointing to the horizon. It's a little bit skewed, but I like that. Because it just adds to the image. It doesn't have to be perfectly balanced and perfectly symmetrical.
Yeah, that first threw me off. That it's not. That's a bit skewed. That it's not like in the middle. But
yeah,
still, it's it all balances out in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, and then
I like it. I really love it.
The more I look at it, the more I like it.
So I failed.
Yes, exactly. Because we both like it.
I personally think this shot is absolutely terrible. I made that shot, so
of course
I think
you do.
It's a terrible photo.
Why?
For a couple of reasons. Because it doesn't tell any kind of story. But okay, if you like it, I'm flattered. Maybe I'll post it. No, I won't. What I wanted to demonstrate with that, but I can do that even with a praise. The thing is, I don't like that photo at all, but and I hope that you would say, yeah, so I can't, it's not my cup of tea or something. Doesn't matter. The thing is, what if I told you that this shot was made at complete pitch darkness? I didn't see anything. So it was like 11:30 at night. It was freezing cold. It was a 30-second exposure. I was literally shivering that way because I was already out for about an hour. It was really, really cold. I was on my knees to shield the lens with my hand from the street lamp on the right, which was the only light, and I hardly did see anything because it was a bit far away, but it had that stray light in the lens, so I had to shield it with my hand for 30 seconds, and I was shivering. It was really hard because I literally shivered that way. So what would that change about your view on that photo? Nothing. That's what I wanted to show. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how a photo was made. It doesn't matter with which camera a photo was made. If the photo itself draws you in or appalls you or whatever, that was what I wanted to show. What it does, if I tell you something about how a photo was made, then it tells something about me as the photographer, because I went out at night at freezing and I was shivering. I knelt down and I didn't to get that shot. So it tells me about the photographer and not about the photo. So everything we talk about, equipment, doesn't tell anything about the photo itself. It might give an interesting story, but it doesn't change the photo itself.
No.
So back to the equipment. The equipment is absolutely unimportant if we talk about a photo itself. It is important, can we make a photo like that? And that is what the discussion about Peter Lick's photo or composition or whatever that you mentioned. I will link the video in the show notes. But it doesn't change anything about the photo itself. So if a photo is shot with a $6,000 camera or a $35 snapshot camera, if the photo is good, And it doesn't matter.
Or if the photo was manipulated, which is the whole argument about the
well,
picture.
the argument is, well, in that case, if someone
Is that a photo?
is that a photo? Yeah, but if you say it's an image, well, who cares? If you say it's a shot from one
From two cameras, who cares?
yeah, it does matter in terms if you claim that it's one shot, and then it's simply a lie, but it doesn't change any photo. But the
so wait, that's a whole other topic. Okay, so I want to just, because I have to go again, and I think we should end now, because I think we wound up with your whole discussion about the camera and what was he thinking, and telling us about, if we go back to the very beginning, which was your question about what was the photographer thinking and what is art and all of that. And I think in the end, it goes back to the same thing.
Right.
It all depends on where you are and how you're seeing things, period. All right, so I have to go again. No, the sofa isn't here. And it's been almost 2 hours of Pete talking.
Oh, come on.
I only talked in the second half. Fern talked in the first half.
So go ahead, say goodbye. Thank you, Heiko. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on the show with us again. And anytime.
Yeah, you people, come on.
And I forgot to say it. If you want to, and we will make this a thing now from now on, if you want to be part of that, if you want to be part of the discussion, just message me or Fern before the InConversation starts or during the InConversation on Tumblr. No problem whatsoever. We will let me just check if someone messaged on Tumblr, because I had Tumblr open now for a while. Then you can join. It's just as simple as clicking a link and then you will be in. Yes. We cannot, for a couple of reasons, cannot post the link openly. We would do that, but there's some legal things that we cannot do. But if you message us on Tumblr and you want to join this conversation, please do so. We'd be delighted. So thank you again, Heiko, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Hope you'll be back soon. Thank you, Fern, for coming back and talking again with us. And I think we'll call it a day now. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right.
Peace out.
Bye.
Now we click on